G'day guys, well, welcome back to Supercoach Swordplay and welcome to the Around 12 Stock Market video. Hope you've had a cracking week so far. As you can tell, the recording conditions are a little bit different tonight. I do have a fair bit going on. Currently 8 AM in the morning, so going to keep the intro extremely short. Got a few good options this week, a few players where I'm absolutely on the fence on. Looking at Ryan Marrick there, but we'll discuss his prospects for the rest of the season. Do we get involved with some rookies this week? We've got Campbell Gray and Isaac Keeler as two potential options, but still some big question marks. We're in a position where we need to rely on some gut feel here and potentially a little bit of luck. So, as I said, keeping the intro extremely short for this week, we're going to crack right into it. You know where we start, the 500k plus defenders. Let's go. At the top of the list this week is one of my favourite players in the comp, Jack Sinclair. Wish he still had his mullet, but I'll forgive him for that. An elite defender that you should have already jumped on, to be quite honest. But if not, his break-even's still low enough. He currently looks like our D1. A painful anti-pod and an easy sleep at night type pick. Had that slow 3-week run and then left that in the past. Went bang, bang, bang. The 3-rounder says it all, and no one on this list really comes close to him. Since round 6, Josh Dacos has scored within a 20-point range. That's between 90 and 119 on all occasions. That's actually a 30-point range, so need to do my maths there better, but I don't see that pattern changing up too much, so that's what you'll most likely get. 90 to, say, 110 is realistic from Joshy. Aim on is that pod type selection, 4 scores under 100 with a pair of 79s, pair of 92s, one massive ceiling game with a 152 against Geelong, and a few low hundreds thrown in there as well. You could do worse, but probably lacks that upside for me. Baylor Dale had a down week, but expected after getting on a bit of a heater on the bye this week. Ashy's break-even is in the red, but only just. His value may have risen with the potential Whitfield role change, so I don't mind this pick at all. Only gone under 100 once since round 3, and that was an 85, which is more than acceptable. Also had 3 130 plus scores in that time as well. Plays Richmond this week, so another ceiling score may be on the cards. He's owned by under 10% of teams and going an average of 1.1 points per minute. So he's a pod you would be very happy to own. Nas is someone I'm looking at as a Reed replacement this week to top off my own defense. Now, he's super consistent, super talented type player, and aside from that low 60s score against the Eagles, which was injury affected, he hasn't put a foot wrong. Only downside seems to be if Ross decides to switch magnets and play him in the midfield and a little bit forward of the ball. Even then, still think he's got the potential to punch out a solid enough score, but we much prefer him down back distributing that ball, setting up plays. He tends to drift up the ground anyway, has a knack for hitting the scoreboard. If we take out that injury-affected game, his floor's 96. So, reliable, makes your rest easy as an owner, plays Melbourne this week, then sits out for the bye. The best play is to wait the week and then jump on him after his bye free. But I really, really like him and want him in my side. Currently sitting 5th in total averages for defenders with a 106.7 on the season to date. Just looking at this list, with Nas, if I do get him in, I'll own 5 out of the top 7 averaging defenders. So very nice. Clark should hover between, 500 to 550k for most of the year. Looks to be that 105 averaging type player who you can safely bring in most weeks without having to break the bank. Zorks, again, looks back to that top line defender, but doesn't present near as much value as what he did, say, a few weeks ago. Dropped to almost 500k, but after scores of 166, 99 and 118, he shot back up past 575k, plays the Bombers this week. I can actually see him reaching that break even of 126. The fact is it's in green, and that shows just how good his last 3 have been. Rosie buy this week, but it's a hold, possible trade in option in a couple of weeks. Now, Whitfield is worrying me slightly. It's given this role change. Now, it could only be the week, and I'm hoping it's for the week, but he did push up the ground last week and didn't have much of an impact. Surely he goes down back, someone else fills the void, but I can't be certain on that. For that reason, along with his high break even, I would wait and keenly observe this week. He's playing the Tigers though, so even if he continues with that role, we can still potentially squeeze out a decent score against some weaker opposition, but I've just got my fingers crossed on this one. And the Shees, he's got the bye, and that actually comes as a relief to some owners, but We know what the story is. Clarko's been playing him in that forward little bit of mid-roll again. No surprise his scoring has gone down. His break-even's gone up. A very highly owned pick, but I know some are looking to jump ship this week. My main concern is if he goes back to that friendly role, we'll want him in our sides again. But a 77 and 63 is proof that he doesn't score well playing forward. His 3-week stretch before that, 135, 120, 101, shows that when he's playing in defence, he does score well. So I'm not really in a position to trade him out, and I'm just going to hold and hope he comes good. If you've had enough, though, you don't trust he's going to get back to his friendly scoring role, then I really don't blame you for getting rid of him, and I wish you all the best of luck. That break-even of 168 is very much in the red and actually double his 3-round average. On to the defenders, 250 to 500k. Kitty is a real breaker, only having played the one game, missed last week after pulling up sore, and not sure if he gets up this week or not. I'm hearing no, but as you know, I don't know what the team sheet's looking like yet. Either way, it's 100% a weight, and you'd be still a jump on early. Pryor, he's been playing well, smashed out an 87 on the weekend, made over 175k already, really doing the job at D6. Easy hold with 50 break even. Salem is that pod selection that's found some form last week after a quiet month. Before the 117 against the Swans, only delivered a 57, 72 and an 84. 3 scores below 72 and 4 scores above 110 have left him with a season average of just under 90. Unless you are majorly strapped for cash, not a pick I'd really look at. Much better pick for game day squad this year. Rory Laird, the desk, another pod selection that's had no real discussion about him this year, produced really consistent weekly scoring with only 1 score below 85. Nothing sexy about the pick, but you can pretty much lock in that 95 type average if you want a stress-free pick. The ceiling isn't there for me, so a lack of upside, just very safe. High score of the year was 124 in round 3 against North. Since round 5, scores are 99, 95, 100, 95, 91, 117 and 96. Tom Stewart, he came back from the dead, put in a good performance, and I know he'll tempt many. And look, a month and a bit ago, I was actually planning for him myself, but I just don't see him as a pick because of that poor durability. His consistency has dropped off, and he's not the Tommy Stewart of old. We can't rely on simply name here. There is a world where I think he could come good, but he isn't someone I'd want to rely on towards the back end of the year where we've run out of trades. His fixture's nice, plays West Coast this week, Richmond, Essendon twice, North Melbourne in round 20. So look, you can go for it if you got the faith, but he's just not for me. Roberts, well, he had a big first half on the weekend, 18 touches just in the first 2 quarters. 125 is certainly on the cards, but unfortunately just dropped off in the second half. Only 3 more effective disposals to his total. His first half performance shows that the scoring power is still there, but not as reliable as what he was to start the year. I'm holding for now, but one that you could definitely move on before his bye. And poor old Zachy Reid, really feel for this bloke. One of Essendon's best players this year, such an important cog. He was on track for a monster before he went down with that hammy injury, but now he has to sell. He's got the round 16 buys, so really need him to cover down back until then, but we got no choice now. Done the job for us, made us close to 320k, so a phenomenal effort. Thanks for your service, Zach. You've been the best Reeds phone this year, and I wish you all the best with your recovery. A massive blow for Supercoaches, and a massive blow, more particularly for Essendon fans. On to the defenders, under 250k. At the top of the list, we have Campbell Gray. It seems like Uze's a fan, wants to get games into him, but I find it hard to trust what coaches say. He has mentioned the fact that he loves his versatility and he deserves his chance at senior level. The club did put out a Twitter post saying that, and I quote, Campbell Gray has wasted no time adjusting to AFL level. His 14 1%ers last Friday night were the most by a Tiger since Tyler Young in round 4, 2023. So if he plays well and scores, say, a trio of 60s in the next 3 weeks, his price will rise by around 118k. His defensive forward DPP adds some really nice flexibility to swing with players like your Nick Martin and your Patton, etc. The issue is, does he keep his spot when Bolter returns? If so, does he move into more of that forward role? I think that's what Uze may have been alluding to. It's tough to predict. Like, surely the fact that he piled on the 1%ers translates to decent short-term job security even in a different role. As a forward, his scoring potential really dies down, but if somehow he stays down back, I like what he can do. So let's see. It's so tough, but if his name is Bolter, and if so, we make the decision, then it's out of him or Keeler for me this week, and I don't know which way I'm going. We'll talk about Keeler later, but I like his DPP for that trade flexibility. It's just, it's a hard one to judge me at this stage. Now, Angus Clark, he's a rule breaker, only playing the one game so far. A debut to remember, bagged 3 goals, looking like a 100-game player. 16 touches, 8 marks, 3 tackles to go along with his 3 snags. I loved it. His family in the stands could not believe what they were seeing. They were going nuts, which was awesome. I definitely wait another week to see what he delivers against a tougher opposition in the Lions this week. They're dropping like flies at the Don, so hopefully he gets an extended run. But even so, I'm in the wait-and-see camp, and then hopefully we jump on next week. Sard, as we know, out with a hammy, so he'll miss, I think it's the next 4 to 6 weeks. Just can't take a trick, the poor fella. Only positive is that he's got DPP, so you can swing him around for some flexibility. Sandy Brock, this has been a big miss, and if I had any idea that the Gov would have been out for so long, I would have jumped on for sure. He's made 120k, sits with a negative break-even, job security seems solid until or even if the Gov gets back to full fitness, which I hope he does. It's a shocking situation for the Gov to be in. Only one down game with a 39 for Sandy Brock, but his other scores 80, 60, 57, and that's 79 against the Crom last week. That is all fine, and if you did jump on at 99k, absolutely laughing at this point. Joe Fonte, 77, 29, 70, and a 57 last week, providing a warm body at D6 or on our bench, as well as making some money, so very easy hold for now. O'Connell, certainly not setting the world on fire, a very slow burn, I've got him, but he could give you an extra 40 or so points on a tough buy round if you're struggling to field 18. Has that round 13 buy, which is friendly for most. So one to hold, but not one to invest in. Matty Carroll, the break even is creeping up, but is the type of player in Supercoach 2025. I think we need to hold through the buys. Just cross our fingers he can pull out a spike score. Look, if he could pump out a 70 odd, that would absolutely reset his break even, and he could make that 120k after, but yeah, a bit dicey at the moment. And Benny Patton may potentially come back into the side due to some injuries and suspensions, but if his name's a sub, he'll likely lose coin, which is unfortunate. I'd still hold for sure. He's got the potential to make some more cash if he can string a few games together. Actually dominates in the Rezzies last week, so he does have a chance to be recalled. If he could play during the buys, that'd be a massive win for those that have him. On to the midfielders, 500k plus. Up the top, we have Adam Chera, been a brilliant hold, produced his best 2 scores in the last couple of weeks, has a bye this week, but will then continue to make cash, hopefully continue to score well. Looks set to be my M8 for the remainder of the season. Just love this bloke. Dawson went large as expected against the Eagles last week. Talked about him a lot in the past couple, so you know about his Supercoach finals fixture, up and down scoring, etc. Seems to have a good buy for most. Heaney is in fine form, seems to be feeling it at the moment. We are picking him up for a discount of almost 100k off his starting price, so an absolute fall in primo. 5 sub-tons isn't ideal, but he is capable of so much more. Had a Brownlow-worthy start to last year. He's yet to hit the same heights consistently in 2025, but the talent is still undeniably there, and he plays Richmond, St Kilda, Essendon, North, and West Coast in the second half of the season. They are some juicy matchups, and that could deliver the Heen Dogs some large numbers. So one I'm highly considering myself for this week. Noah Anderson could be a good pickup if he avoids the upcoming tags and they go to Rao. Massive ceiling when things click, averaging 35.5 disposals in his last 2 matches. 2 games below 100 for the season with a decent floor of 89 and 96. Chucky went bang after I said, I think it was last week, that I didn't trust him. I still don't, to be honest, but it's just those tag games. Those tag games hurt, but I do remember watching him live at Marvel with Spills 2-3 years back, and I'm hoping he can do something similar at the Gabba on Thursday night. Went close to a 200, so I'm chucking the VC on him, and he's likely to either fizzle or go really back. In fairness, he's only gone under 100 once in the past 5 games, so I may be a tad harsh on him, but those floor games are just really, really hard to get over. And Sarong, he has been consistent without setting the world on fire. It's a nice floor with potential to go large every now and then, if that's what you're after. He fits the bill for that type of mould. No real captaincy-worthy scores aside from that 142, but is pretty much the definition of consistency. I think handcuffing him with Brayshaw after the bye wouldn't be the worst play. At least one of them will go big and avoid the tag. Zeret, well, he tore the Tigers to shreds, as expected last week. Really roared his owners after a couple of poorer performances. We've seen the best and the worst of him this year. Can't believe they just allowed him to sit behind the ball and just do as he pleased. Would have been such a nice watch if you owned him. And I tell you what, the Zeret and Martin combo absolutely killed me this week. Now, history suggests that he'll be a ripping pick. The only potential red flag, or not the only, but a potential red flag, is his Supercoach finals run. Probably not, but there is a chance of 4 tag games. James Jordan, Mullen, Windy, and say George Hewitt. Maybe 2 out of those 4 games, but just something to look out for. The only super lowly ranked side he'll come up against again is the Tigers in round 18, but at around 550k, it's hard to go wrong if we're okay for that round 16 bye. And Richards continues to break my heart as my 1% pod to start the year. Thought he may be tagged out of the game last week, but he had none of that. Pumped out a monster. A well-deserved break for the great man in round 12 with the bye. What a selection he's been. Even with the Bont on the side, I bloody knew it. On to the next list of mids, and even though the break-even's in red, it's still a good time to get Nick Dacos, providing Finn McGuinness isn't named. He's had a really below-par month of footy from a Supercoach perspective, but he's too good to be down for this long. At any time, he can bounce back, deliver a monster. He's been a little bit sore, stepped on, not completely himself. Some have lost the faith, but I'm still a big believer. Tommy Green's had a nice fixture. Well, he will have a nice fixture in the second half of the season and could be around the mark for that top 8 average in the midfield. As discussed last week, has a nice floor but hasn't gone to the roof for a ceiling score as of yet. I've got the feeling that may come this week against the Tigers. If I could afford to bring in another round 16 by mid, I'd likely snap him up. 101, 125, 112 and 95 in the past month. That's all good. Huey McCluggage only had 2 sub-tons for the year with a pair of 80s, really developed consistency to his game, and would most likely be leading our BNF in my humble opinion. Our most damaging mid by foot, sets up a lot of scoring opportunities. His nice fixture run has come to a bit of an end, but I'll still back him in to produce some nice scores against the highly rated sides. He's got the role, got the talent. Dunks, his teammate, produced his lowest score in the past month on the weekend. Still far from a disaster. Doesn't provide a heap of value now, but does provide security and good scoring potential, especially when Chocky's getting tagged. The Bont and Butters have the bye, but we do need to plan for both. The Bont is at a reasonable price for output, so fine to pick him up next week if you got the cash. Butters will be much more easily attainable and most likely a purchase in round 14. It all depends on how he scores and if he cops a tag before then. If so, we may have another week up our sleeves to target him. Anything under 550k for this man, I think is an absolute gift. And Andy Brayshaw has copped some more attention in recent weeks, but still looks like a top-line midfielder, one we want in our final sides, along with the 2 guns we just discussed. Wait until after his bye, and then he can pounce at a much better price. On to midfielders, 250 to 500k, and at the top of the list this week, we have Collingwood Bull Neddy Long. What a selection he's been for those who took the punt. Made over 225k and since round 5 has scores of 114, 96, 87, 94, a low 65 and then back up to a 94 and a big 134 last week. So a floor of 65, a ceiling 130 plus. His tackle count is awesome, averaging close to 10 a game over the past 4 weeks. He'll make over 30k if he can hit triple figures against the Hawks. What a man. Xavier Lindsay, playing really well for the D's, has a really bright future, an easy hold for the next 3 weeks, and a rookie I'm comfortable fielding, a 3-rounder of 73, all he needs to do, and he's doing it well, 71, 67, and an 80 in his past 3. Matty Rao, he's someone I'm sort of considering at the price, believe it or not. It's just a massive concern pairing him with, say, a Bolton, who I purchased last week, but I must be a glutton for punishment. I do need to be realistic and recognise that if I'm to bring in the Bonds and Butters, I do need to make some sacrifices. This is a bloke who's posted scores of 121, 124, 126, 130, 136 and 137. It's saying that they have been against some weaker opposition at times and a bit of a bully, but in half his games, he's given his owners a score of 124 plus. On the other side of the coin, let's call this fails instead of tails, he's posted 4 scores under 80, and that includes a 53, 69, 74, and an 80 against the Dogs in round 9. He did cop the Jordan tag and a Dunkley tag in 2 of those games, so can possibly be forgiven for those lower scores. It's a rollercoaster type pick, and he still burns in poor old Spilsy's memory after destroying him last year. My question is, does the tag go to Rowell or the Noah Coaster? The Suns played Geelong before the bye and the Giants directly after the bye. Very scary. Plays Freo at PFS this week, but in his only 2 games there in 2025, he's produced 2 of his lowest scores. So he'll be a banger pick some weeks and a real potential headache in other weeks. Maybe pairing him with Nas won't be able to level things out. Clary, well, he scored an equal season high 130 against the Bloods last week, a 99 against the Lions a week before, and he's now set to make some coin. If he can punch out a 100 plus score, he'll add another 25k to his price tag and fatten up before his buy. But will he be a tagger? Will he fade in, out of the game? I'm not too sure. So I don't think he's going to be a season hold, but he should make a little bit more cash before he's ready to go. And Jai Caldwell is now available at under 430k. I had him as a Fallen Primo pod watch last week, and he played really well. A 119, I've got it written down. I think it was 119 from memory after blowing out the cobwebs with the 40 the week before. He's a really important cog to their engine room. Picked up 29 touches and laid 11 tackles against the Tigers. Getting his hands dirty as expected. If he can get back to his round 1 to 2 form, he could be your cheap M8 for the season. Faces a much tougher opponent in Lions this week, so I'd probably watch for one more, then jump on this man if he gets, say, a 100 plus score this week. On to the midfielders, under 250k. Angus Sheldrick is at the top of the list. Looks good in the role, but job security at the price, even last week's price, is a little off-putting for me. If he keeps his spot, avoids the vest for the next month or so, he could be a fine selection. I just don't know if he can do it, and I wish I had that crystal ball. Had a season-high 52% CBAs in round 10, and then followed that up with 37% last week. Consecutive scores in the 80s, averaging 6 tackles a game in the last 2, as well as averaging just over 23 touches. Not enough meat in the bone for me at this price, but we saw what Ned Long has done for the Pies, and I could be very wrong. Clay Hall, well, you can't do much more to get a recall to the seniors. Same story as last month, dominating lower levels, has to be next in line. I really think it could be this week for Gross. I've certainly got my fingers crossed as an owner, but I'm not getting my hopes up too much. Huswaite seems dead for now, which is unfortunate. Can't see him finding his way back in unless injury strikes. Again, hope I'm wrong. The box, he came on as a sub late and played well. Points per minute was good. Made a little bit of cash, but looks to be a slow burn. If you can get a full game, that would be great, but no one knows at this point. And Tommy Gross delivered a grand total of 8 points for his owners on the weekend. Believe it or not, he didn't even start as a sub. Was eventually subbed off, but surely they give him a spell and give my man Clay a crack. An unfortunate one for owners, and may not provide the buy coverage that you're after. So, in a nutshell, if the last 4 blokes play throughout the buys, I'd view that as a real bonus. Don't be planning for them as warm bodies when looking at your buy structure. I'd be looking at them as an unexpected extra. On to the big boys in the ruck. At the top, we got Tommy Sings. He'll deliver you a score in the 40s if the pattern continues. A 45, 48, and 44 in his last 3. At least shows consistency, and the ruck forward swing is a small bonus. Not really worth investing as the ceiling isn't there. But if you got on Sims last week, I suppose you'd be okay with it. However, the Vicentini investment is looking a little shaky after the first week. The scoring pattern is going down. 98, 84, then 66. Has a bye this week, and I know that Jordan Sweet had a day out in the sandful and put his hand up for recall after getting his fair medicine in the 2s. So owners will hope Kenny sticks with Dante, but if I was to have a guess, I think Jordan regains his position as the R1. A very awkward spot for those that have him in the flex. Big Kizza comes in at under 400k with a break-even of 28, 117 and a 9 in his last 2, but before that he had scores of 27, 53, 83 and 54. He's a low floor type ruckman, but we've seen his ceiling in the past. Plays an 8 this week who likes to give up scores to his opponents, but a risky play and one I wouldn't be making myself. Witsy, the old warhorse, is available to purchase at under 500k, so that next step above Kizza. 3 sub-tons with a 73 against Sherry and 2 poor weeks It was a stretch between rounds 8 and 9 with a 54 and his 7-7 and a 77. But aside from that, has 144, 109, 100, 113, 125, 112, and a 127 to his name. Only the one ceiling score, but consistently between 100 to 125. He can't compete with the big two, but he does come at over 200k cheaper. Romo showed us exactly why a week is a long time in Supercoach and has just gone the classic yin-yang. A 179 and then down to a paltry 55 against the Suns. And this was a red flag we're all aware of. We knew he'd smash in the West Coast matchup, then likely struggle against Witts and Gorn. We didn't think he'd struggle that much, but Witsy gave him an absolute bath, and I'm expecting Maxi to really challenge him again this week. So I'm guessing owners would be happy with a flat ton against the D's, but it will be tough. He has the bye the week after, so not great timing if you purchased last week. Flinney had his colours lowered, only scoring that 46. His break-even still sits at 79, so I'd be holding for the week. Playing against Geelong, that should be all good. And there's no point going through all the numbers for Sherry and Gorn. The clear R1 and R2, miles above the rest. You can rest very easy if you own the pair. If not, you're pretty much stressing week upon week, losing bulk points in that R2 slot. They're just so hard to trade in at the price. Only a measly $400 between them now. That's insane. You'll find them at the bottom of the list for a while, and that's simply because of their price. They'll both drop to under 700k at some point. You would say you would go close to guaranteeing, but for some coaches, it may be a case of skipping one completely due to funds and picking up that Witts, maybe Darcy Cameron, or even a TDK type pick after his bye. On to the forwards, 500k plus, and Cozzy Pickett is on a heater, and we now welcome him into that top forward bracket. Historically, a player that has hot patches but then fades out, delivers a low stretch of scores. If history can change and this form remains consistent, he'll be a super pod pick. 106, 115, and that brilliant 148 last week. His CBAs started to spike in round 8, and then with Viney out, he's had 71%, 71%, and then 60% CBAs. He's kicked a goal in every game bar one this year, including 2 bags of 5, 3 lots of 2. In his 2 lowest scoring games, he gave away 5 free kicks, which didn't help, and his goal kicking accuracy was only at 40%, so a little bit of reasoning possibly there. The funny thing is that against the easier opponents in your Richmond, West Coast and Essendon, he delivered his worst scores. His ceiling games have come against the Hawks, Lions, Swans and the Dockers, who are tougher opponents, so it's really hard to view how good his fixture is from here. Dogger, well, he's taken the P155 with the number 1 ruck role, and the story remains the same. With Shrek out, he's a top pick. With Shrek in, he's an inconsistent key forward. Only 1 floor game is 64, but when he goes big, he goes really big. The ceiling is awesome. He's top 3 for 25 so far, a 143, 163, and 165. You gotta love that. I backed in Nicky Martin to produce a ceiling score against the Tigers last week, and was that spot on? Even I didn't expect this much, but what a joy for those who trade him in for, say, a Horn Francis McRae type. Similar to Dogger, has an awesome ceiling with his top 3 being a pair of 145s and his 163 last week. 2 of those were against lower ranked sides in Richmond and West Coast, so it does like to bully a bit. The real test will come with his tougher upcoming fixture. He's given us a 53 and a 74, but one of those games at least he was playing forward of the ball, and then he's playing behind the ball. That scoring output is going to be much, much stronger. Baz, well, he could have had the week off, but decided to play against his old bum and dominate. Maybe laid out this week as he has been struggling, but hopefully he can play up until the bye, have a rest then. What a pickup he's proven to be. Track just keeps on tracking on. Lots snapped him up at under 500k, but I still think he's a decent selection, even though we're spending up now. Look, he's not a pick with value that's shouting, yes, yes, you must get me now. But at the same time, he hasn't gone under 92 since round 4, delivered 4 of his top 5 scores in the last 5 weeks. So I'd call him a safe, highly owned pick that should comfortably end as a top 4 forward. Warner had a poor first half and was actually outshined by his brother. Luckily, picked it up in the second half to go to a solid type score. And that's what you get with the Chad. Some ups, some downs, but still looks to be a top liner for us up forward. The 3-rounder, that's still in triple figures. And Isaac Rankin had so many clangers for such a talented and skillful player. That's all that's stopping him from hitting some really nice scores. The roll's there, he's creating some nice opportunities for himself, just needs to clean things up a bit. You can wait on him with that break even of 133, but he's most likely someone that you want in your final side. On to the forwards, 250 to 500k. Toby Green's up the top, and he's a tempting pick of the price, but when you do delve deeper, it's not really a home run. 79%, 48%, and 56% CBA rate over the past three. He scores a 54, 74, and then that brilliant 127 last week. It's just not enough, and I think it could be fool's gold unless he goes on some sort of crazy run. 4 scores 124 plus, and 4 scores below 54. Pretty much the ultimate roller coaster. Jezza is on fire, having a nice run. Kicked 13 goals in the past 2 weeks, plays West Coast this week. After the bye, has some really easy kills. And the potential to kick another bag of 6 or 7. It's really tempting me, as he doesn't necessarily play like that traditional key forward. He's mobile, active, comes up the ground into the play. A pod selection that hasn't tempted many coaches, but could win you some league matchups on his good days. Don't be fooled completely though, as he is a key forward at the end of the day, and his low throws, what's that, 1, 2. I'll give you his 3 lowest, 36, 48, and 62. So you sort of know what you're going to get with these type picks. Cleary is at least providing a warm body for us, so I'll look to hold throughout the buys. Feel free to get him up to a primo though, if you need. Thilthorpe has had a real breakout season, could linger around the top 10 for averages in our forward line. A pod pick, nice buy, but personally just don't have the faith in key position players, even like I mentioned with Jezza above. Does have some nice matchups in Supercoach finals though. The highest round average on this list with 114, hasn't gone below 100 in the last 3, so some positives to the pick, just not my type of player. Hewitt lost, 11k last week, and the break even is just in the red. You could probably hold for now as a warm body that offers some DPP, has the ability to punch out a score in the 90s. We know this, but yeah, either way, maybe a little bit team dependent. Oh, Shea had 26 points to his name at halftime after that injury scare, but had a decent second half. Kicked a snag in the last minute to boost his score to low 70s. Not what new owners wanted, but if he doesn't go for that ankle, it could have been an 85 plus. Talked to him about him a lot last week, so nothing's changed aside from the fact that his value is drying up. And Daniel has a buy, but if you held during the past fortnight, I'm guessing you're still holding for now. A low break even, so set to rise in round 13, and with the Shees playing forward, he's got more opportunity to get the ball into his little hands. The next list, my boy Levi, just keeps on delivering. What a man he is. Just give him the rising star now. A really easy hold given the fact he can score well for you on field, has DPP, has the last buy, playing on a wing and up forward. It's not usually great for Supercoach, but this man can just find the pill anywhere. Mateus has been a bit of a bust. Things aren't just going his way. We haven't seen him in a majority midfield role yet. If he plays well this week and the role looks good, then you could invest after the bye. Just unfortunate if you went early, but there is still some hope. The Pete, he's continued to play well, has a role that is friendly to Supercoach scoring. Only concern is that pending arrival of Crouch should be fine up until then. Clearly the highest 3-round average on this list. Maxi Hall, he's been a wonderful rookie for us, but absolutely done the job now. Break-evens in triple figures. That means he'll start to really leak cash if he doesn't produce a big spike score. So a recommended trade out if you're playing the numbers game. Job security is great though, so if you preference that, no probs at all. Matty Kennedy is on the buy, but he's been a solid pod for his owners. And Ryan Marrick is a massive talking point this week. Now, things didn't pan out for Rhino last week. Firstly, lots of lock lines. Impossible to go up to a decent score when you get those early clangers. Then with Waterman going down, he was moved up the ground and opportunities dried up. We need to ask ourselves if this was a once-off or if he could actually lose his role. The new elephant in the room is mid-season recruit Tommy McCarthy. Some are worried that he may come into that role, leaving Marrick on a wing or up forward. A lot of it depends on what you think will happen. There is no doubt that he relies on kick-ins to boost his score. If we hold, he could undo all of his good work. He's made close to 260k, and his 2 real spike scores did come against weaker opponents in Richmond and the D's when they weren't going as well. On the other hand, it could turn out to be an Adam Chera type situation, or to a lesser extent like a Caleb Daniel. There are some positives to holding. Before that 49, his floor in the role was mid-80s, and he was still second for total disposals and second for kick-ins for the Eagles on the weekend. So they could easily bring in an Archer Reed and play him forward, and it would be a big ask for McCarthy to play right away. So I'm still confused as to what to do. Team dependent maybe, but I am absolutely on the fence about trading or holding. And we'll finish off with the forwards under 250k. Archie Wicks could be a chance to be named this week with that injury carnage at Windy Hill. I'm doing the stocky in parts and I don't have the teams available to me yet, but I think he gets in. Could start as a sub, and even if he doesn't, his scoring power doesn't look overly fantastic. The upside is that he comes at the lowest price point possible, has DPP, and does play the first game of the round, so we'll know if he's sub, assuming that he's named in the first place. Erasmus, well, he's priced close to 200k, so I really don't like paying that much for a bloke with questionable job security. Scoring potential is there if he avoids a vest, and his tog is half decent. Not for me, but go there if you have different ideas. Angove is averaging in the 30s, so not much to see there. Keeler is an interesting one with his role change down back, so with Dougal Howard out, there's a chance he maintains a defensive role for the next month or so, which would mean good things for his scoring potential. Playing up forward hasn't scored well at all, with a high score of 41 over 4 games, but down back, he scored his season high with a 67. Pretty much an identical fantasy to Supercoach ratio as well. 15 touches with 7 of those being intercept possessions, 5 contested when at 80% efficiency, a couple of tackles thrown in for good measure. I've got no idea what happens with his role moving forward, but I'll be asking my St Kilda mates for some big advice on this one. A very interesting prospect, given the fact that our cupboard is so bare. Closey has a very low 3-rounder due to the sub-vest and will most likely lose some cash. With a full game, that could reset, but I'm not really sure when that's coming. Kako has made a smidgen over 64k on the year to date. A warm body, great job security, but no scoring power. And Sid Draper looks to be such a talented player, but has lived in the sub-vest for his short career. If he gets a full game or two under the belt, he could be a wonderful pick. Knicks just won't play him though. Scores of 7, 5 and 12 in his last 3. Just seems like such a waste. So all the best of luck with your trade ins and your trade outs for the week. And I'll see you soon in the next one. Bedtime for me. Bye.